I started dating my boyfriend at the time, George, in probably early to mid-February. In mid-April, I found out I was pregnant. It was, I mean, it was a shock for me, but then it wasn't a shock because I knew that I was being unsafe and I knew the consequences, but it still kind of shocked me when I found out. So then I went home and told my grandma, which she was pretty shocked about it too. She'd always joked around like, oh, you better not get pregnant and blah, 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 and then it happened, and she was supportive from the get-go. I told her from the beginning that I didn't know what I wanted to do, if I wanted to keep the baby or if I wanted to go through with an abortion, but she told me whatever I wanted to do, she'd be there for me. And I cried the whole time telling her. She's the one who actually told my mom. I didn't break it to my mom or anything. And then from there I just kind of started telling I started telling everybody, and then I decided that I did want to keep the baby, that I'm all for people being allowed to make the decision on an abortion, but I decided that I was old enough and I was perfectly capable of taking care of a baby. So I decided to go ahead and keep the baby. In August, I found out that it was a girl, and about 2 or 3 weeks later is when everything kind of started to happen. It was that I guess the 3rd week of August that I'd actually went and bought the first stuff that I had ever bought for the baby. I bought some furniture and I bought some clothes. I'd waited up until this point to buy anything. That was early in the week. Friday, it was one of my friends was moving out of town, so we all went to go eat. I felt the baby kick for the hardest she had ever kicked. The night of August 25th, in the wee hours, I guess it was already August 26th, that I started getting really bad pains and bleeding, but I didn't think anything of the bleeding because I bled earlier on when I was exactly 3 months, and there was nothing wrong at that point. So then I went to my grandmother because the pains were getting worse and worse and worse. She called the doctor, and the doctor told her to take me to the hospital. So we went to the hospital, and the bleeding got heavier and the pains got worse. And then when we got to the hospital, they put me in a wheelchair, and then they took off. I was sitting like on a sheet thing, and they picked it up, and it was just dripping out blood. There was blood all over the car seat. They took me inside into the emergency room, and they brought the ultrasound. They hooked me up to IVs and all that. They brought in the ultrasound trying to find the baby's heartbeat, and it took them, they couldn't find it at first. It took them a few tries, and finally they found it, and the baby's heartbeat was below 50. They already knew the baby wasn't going to make it. They didn't know what was the case with me. They were doing other tests, and then while they were doing that, my water broke. At that point, they knew that I was going to deliver the baby, because at first they were worried they were going to have to do an emergency C-section, or what was going to be, if anything was wrong with me. So once the water broke, they took me upstairs to the delivery room, and I was in there with no family, no friends, nobody. I was just in there by myself with a doctor that wasn't even my doctor. It was just a doctor that was on call from that group, and a bunch of nurses. And as they wheeled me upstairs, the baby was already starting to slip out, and the nurse kept pushing the foot back in. Once I was in the delivery room, the doctor was on the side of me prepping to get a catheter ready to give to me, and at that point I just screamed, and the baby just slid out onto the table. She did come out breech, so she just landed on her back. The nurses got her cleaned up, and then they tried to hand her back to me, but I was hysterical. I didn't want to hold her. I was freaking out, and then but they told me they'd bring the baby back to me, because if I didn't hold her, that I would regret it. It was the next morning that the social worker came to talk to me and tell me my options, kind of about the burial or cremation and all that. And she had mentioned cremation, which I had never thought of, and that I don't know why I never thought of it, but that immediately I knew that's what I wanted to do, because I didn't know how long, if I was going to be in El Paso for forever, and I wouldn't just want to leave her behind. She was my daughter. I want to take her with me wherever I might go. So we did have her cremated, and I do have her next to my bed. And then that was the first night in months that I was able to sleep through the night, which was something that I had wanted when I was pregnant. I wanted to be able to just sleep through the night, but once I was able to do it, I hated it. While I was pregnant, there's times that I doubted that I wanted this baby, that I could take care of the baby. It would just jump back and forth. Like one day I'd be like, oh, I am so excited. And the next day I'd be like, I'm not ready for this. What am I doing? This is such a mistake. And then, so once everything happened and I lost the baby, I blamed myself for not wanting her enough. Which the hospital was really great. They gave me all kind of a memory book, and they gave me a bunch of papers on grieving, and in it mentioned like it's not your fault, and that's the first thought that goes through a lot of women's head, I guess, when they lose a baby. After I decided, since I had the baby's footprints, I had decided I wanted to get them tattooed, which I had thought about doing that when I expected to carry her full term, and I was actually just a few days short of 6 months when everything happened. I did have a memorial for the baby once we did get her ashes back. We were there for hours. Me and my friends just kind of, they're trying to help me get my mind off of everything.